My parents skipped my birthday again. No call, no text. A week later, Dad sent a PDF. Family ski trip. Your share. $2,000. I just cut them off and told them I'd stop paying their bills. They laughed and didn't believe it. But by morning they were in a panic. I turned 27 last month. Nobody in my family remembered. No text, no call, not even a cheap Facebook message. It wasn't surprising, just disappointing. I used to hope for something small. A voicemail, maybe a dinner invite, but they'd skipped it 3 years in a row now. Every time I tell myself not to care, and every year I did. This time hit harder. Maybe because I just Venmo'd my brother his rent again. Maybe because I transferred $200 to my mom the week before because the fridge was empty and she couldn't wait until payday. Or maybe because I'd covered their internet in August, car insurance in September, and their water bill just 2 weeks before my birthday. The last time my dad actually paid for something, I was in college. So a week passed. Nothing. Silence from them while I worked 55 hours that week, including my birthday. I thought about calling them myself just to see what excuse they'd come up with, but I didn't. I waited. Then on a Thursday afternoon, a PDF popped up in our family group chat. No message, no subject, just a file named Skirip under Expenses 2025. PDF. I opened it thinking maybe it was a joke. It wasn't. The PDF was 4 pages long. Whoever made it, probably my dad, had included little ski emojis next to the section titles. There was a table of expenses for a 5-day trip to Colorado, including hotels, equipment rentals, gas, groceries, restaurant reservations, and a line at the bottom that said, Monica's share $2,000. I didn't reply. Instead, I watched the chat light up as if nothing was wrong. My mom sent a photo of a ski jacket she wanted to buy. My brother said he was calling dibs on the room with the fireplace. My dad made some joke about hoping the hot tub worked this time. Not a single mention of my birthday, not even a sarcastic one. That night I lay awake until nearly 4 o'clock in the morning, staring at the ceiling and doing the math in my head. I grabbed a notebook and listed every single thing I'd paid for in the last 4 months. Brother's rent 3 months, $2,850. Parents' electricity $113. Water bill $61. Costco runs $180 a month average. Internet $89. Car insurance, dad's $142. Random emergencies probably another $400. All while working my butt off, living in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment and skipping vacations for the 3rd year in a row. I hadn't even bought myself a birthday cake. At 7:42 a.m. I sent a message in the chat. Effective immediately, I'm done paying for anything. Handle your own bills. Then I put the phone down and went to work. I expected shock, as that I got sarcasm. My dad sent 3 laughing emojis. My mom replied, "Oh, what's going on with you?" My brother posted a meme of someone flipping a table with the caption "Drama Queen Energy." And that was it. Like I was being ridiculous for setting a boundary. But what they didn't realize, and what I'd never shown them before, was that I meant it. Every word. And I wasn't going to explain or justify it. I was just going to disappear from their financial picture. By the next morning, things changed fast. At 9:13 a.m. my mom texted, "Intern's down. Can you check the payment?" At 9:17 my dad called. I let it ring. At 10:41 I got a voicemail from my brother. He was freaking out. His landlord sent a notice. Rent wasn't received. He had until the 5th or he'd be evicted. It was the first time I heard actual panic in any of their voices. That's when I realized something that had always been in the background, but I hadn't really let myself face. They couldn't afford life without me. They weren't just using me as a cushion. They were depending on me to keep everything from falling apart. And it was about to fall apart. They had no idea how serious I was. But they were about to find out, because I wasn't going to back down this time. I was done being the responsible one while they acted like teenagers with no consequences. The family ski trip, they'd have to find someone else to pay for it. The unpaid bills, not my problem. And my brother's rent. Let's just say next month was going to look very different. By the 2nd day they went quiet. No more ski trip planning in the group chat. No questions, no updates. It felt strange, like watching a machine finally stop humming after it's been running non-stop for years. I knew what that silence meant. They were regrouping, trying to figure out which one of them could get to me first. It was always the same routine. A little guilt, some passive-aggressive jokes, then a full-blown pity party until I gave in. But this time I didn't feel bad. I felt tired. Tired in a way that made me feel like something was finally shifting. On Friday, my brother cracked first. Not in the chat, directly to me. "You seriously going to let me get evicted over some birthday thing?" I stared at it. That's what he thought this was. Pentrum. Like I was punishing them over a missed cake. I didn't even answer right away. Hours passed before I sent a single line. "You're almost 25. Figure it out." He read it immediately and didn't say anything else. Saturday morning, my dad called. I expected him to be pissed, but he went into full monologue mode. Something about family sticking together, how we've always helped each other, how tight things had been since co, and how I should be mature enough to understand. I let him talk. Then I asked one thing. "Do you know when my birthday was?" There was a pause. Then he laughed nervously, said, "Come on, Monica. Don't be like that." I hung up. Monday morning, the real panic started. My mom sent a screenshot of her utility bill. It had that big red past banner at the top. No greeting, just the image in one sentence. "Can you cover this month, just this once?" I didn't reply, just reacted with a thumbs up. By Tuesday, I had 4 missed calls from my brother. He finally left a voicemail, half yelling, half begging. Said the landlord gave him a 5-day notice. Said he was screwed. Said our parents promised they'd help, but they don't have sh*t right now. He said I was leaving him to rot over a ski trip. That's how disconnected they were from reality. They still thought this was about a vacation. I called back. He asked how I could just turn my back on him like this. Said I'd never done anything this cruel. I said, "You've never paid a bill in your life. You're 24. Start now." He told me to go to hell. Then hung up. The week kept getting worse for them. My aunt called me midweek, totally out of the blue. She said she got a weird message from my dad asking to borrow just a little help for rent. That's when I knew they were really scrambling. Asking her meant they'd run out of options. She told me she didn't understand how my parents were in such a mess when I was always helping them. I told her I stopped. He paused and then said, "Well, good." That Friday, my mom sent another message. "Everything's getting shut off. We need help. Please." Still no birthday mention. No apology. Just the usual quiet expectation that I jump in, fix it, and disappear again. But the longer I waited, the better I felt. There was this strange calm space opening up in my life. No chaos, no guilt texts, just peace. That weekend I did something I hadn't done in years. I went shopping. Real shopping. New boots, a proper winter coat, a dinner out with friends. I didn't check my bank account 6 times while I walked through the mall. I didn't say no to dessert. I didn't feel sick with anxiety the next morning. For the first time in years, my money was mine. Meanwhile, my brother started selling his stuff. First it was the gaming chair, then his smartwatch. He tried pawning a tablet he'd barely used. Said on social he was taking a minimalist break from tech, but I knew he was broke. My mom stopped posting pictures of dinners. The lights behind them probably weren't on anymore. I found out from a neighbor that they'd started keeping their heat off to save electricity. I didn't reach out. I wanted them to sit in it, to really feel what it was like to be without the person they'd leaned on like a crutch. Not just financially, emotionally too. I'd been the responsible one since I was 19. The one who remembered birthdays. The one who kept the group chat alive. The one who reminded them when car insurance was due or rent was late. Now they were lost. They thought I was bluffing. They thought I'd snap back into place. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. By week 3, the desperation started turning into manipulation. It began with my mom sending this long message in the group chat, a full-blown paragraph, which was rare for her. She said she'd reflected on things and admitted maybe they'd missed some things lately. Still no direct mention of my birthday. Still no apology, just carefully chosen words to make it sound like something had been miscommunicated. Then came the twist. She ended the message with, "We still want you to come on the ski trip. It won't feel like a family thing without you. If money's tight on your end, maybe we can reduce your share." That last part made my stomach turn. They still thought the issue was me not being able to afford it. They thought I was mad because I couldn't keep up. That's how far off they were. After all the rent I'd paid for them, all the bills I'd covered, they still saw me as someone who should earn a seat at the table by contributing more. It wasn't about missing my birthday or never checking in on me. It was about whether I'd pay to be included. I didn't reply, but I made a note. They weren't sorry. They were scared. 2 days later, my brother jumped in. He sent a voice note which was new for him, and the whole thing was dripping with fake vulnerability. He started with, "Look, I get it. I know we messed up," but quickly pivoted into a rant about how this isn't just hurting you, it's hurting all of us. You cutting us off made everything fall apart. That part hit me, but not the way he intended. It had all fallen apart. Their food, internet, heat, rent, all of it in just 3 weeks. But as I stopped paying, that wasn't normal. That wasn't how adults were supposed to live. He ended the message with, "If you really care about family, you'll come back from this little silent treatment and help us out. We're family, Monica. We've always been." It was such a twisted version of love, I almost laughed. They hadn't called me once when I was sick earlier that year. Hadn't noticed when I pulled double shifts for months to make ends meet. Hadn't even texted me for my birthday. But suddenly when I cut the money, we were always family. The thing about manipulation is it doesn't work when you've stopped needing approval. That same day I canceled the Costco membership they were still using. They noticed within an hour. My mom sent a screenshot that said, "Membership inactive. Please renew." I didn't answer. The next day my dad texted me asking why his car insurance didn't go through. I didn't answer. Then came the voicemail. His tone was cold. He said if I was going to cut them off, fine. But I should have at least given them a heads up so they could prepare. As if they hadn't had decades to get their lives in order. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a new savings account and transferred what used to go to their bills into it. I named the account Escape Fund. It felt symbolic, like I was finally building a life for myself without carrying 3 grown people on my back. That weekend I took a day trip with friends to a lake town nearby. Something small but peaceful. While we were eating lunch, I checked my phone and saw a single sentence from my brother. "They're blaming me now." Thanks. I turned my phone off. They were starting to blame each other. Good. Let the cracks show. Let them feel what I felt for years. Alone, unsupported, cornered. For years I was the glue, the fixer, the one who smoothed it all over when rent was late or the fridge was empty or my mom was crying over her bank balance. I was their plan A, B, and C. And now they were realizing what it meant to live without me. But the worst part, they weren't hitting rock bottom yet. Not even close. By the first of the month the countdown had started. My brother had 5 days. 5 days to come up with his rent or face eviction. I knew this because he told me directly and not in the usual passive-aggressive way. He was blunt. Said he needed $950 or he was out. No theatrics, no jokes, just numbers. For a second I felt that old twitch, the one that made me want to fix it, but I didn't move. I didn't even respond. I had already made the transfer to myself, not to him. Day 2 he posted a moving sale on Facebook. Everything priced too high. Like he still didn't understand what situation he was in. I watched him post a barely used pair of noise-canceling headphones for $300 and a second-hand gaming monitor for $400. He must have gotten desperate fast because 2 hours later both prices dropped by half. Day 3 my mom started calling. 10 missed calls. He finally texted. He has nowhere to go. You're really going to let your own brother live on the street? Then without warning she added, he told us you offered to help. Now you're ghosting him. That stopped me. I hadn't said a word to him. Not since the voicemail where he told me I was leaving him to rot. So either he was lying to shift the blame or they were trying to guilt trip me with a fake story. Either way it meant they were spiraling. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened on day 4. I was getting ready for work when I heard my doorbell. I don't usually answer unannounced visits, but I glanced through the peephole and froze. It was my brother standing outside my apartment, 2 bags at his feet. I hadn't told him where I lived, not once. I'd moved out of our hometown 2 years ago and never gave my new address to anyone in my family. I wasn't even sure how he found me unless my mom had saved one of those old Amazon packages I once had delivered to their place. I opened the door halfway. He looked wrecked, said he had nowhere else to go, that he'd sold everything he could, that he'd called everyone, and that our parents said they couldn't take him back, and which was rich considering he still lived off their Netflix account. I stood there for a full minute just staring at him. Not because I was considering letting him in, but because I was stunned they'd actually cut him loose that fast. I always assumed they'd keep shielding him no matter what. But apparently with the internet off and the fridge empty, he was too much of a burden even for them. I told him he couldn't stay here. He didn't yell, didn't cry, just nodded, picked up his bags and left without another word. That night I found out where he actually went. A girl he used to hook up with in high school posted a picture of him asleep on her couch. No caption, just his socks sticking out of a pile of blankets. The comments were brutal. I didn't message him. I didn't tell our parents. I just watched. The next morning my dad called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. This time he wasn't angry. He wasn't sarcastic. He was quiet. Said they were worried. Said my brother wasn't answering anymore. Said they were scared about where this was all going. He ended the message with, "I think we really messed this up." That was the first time in my life I'd ever heard him admit fault ever. But the surprise didn't end there. 2 days later I got an email from a lawyer. Subject line, "Notice of removal from family joint account authorization." Apparently my parents were finally removing me as a co-signer on their credit card, the one they had begged me to co-sign on 5 years ago because they didn't have the credit score. I thought it would feel good, like closure. But then I read further. It wasn't just a removal. They had racked up over $14,000 in debt on it, all under my name. And since I'd stopped paying, they defaulted. They weren't just spiraling. They were trying to bury me with them. I thought the worst was behind me, that cutting them off financially would be the hardest part. It wasn't. When I got the email from the lawyer representing the credit card company, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee. I remember the subject line, "Joint account status, urgent action required." That coffee went cold. Turns out my parents had never stopped using the card I'd co-signed on years ago. I thought freezing the bills meant everything, but apparently they just quietly maxed it out before the freeze hit. Over $14,000 in charges, all under my name. And now it was in default. They never told me, never asked, just kept spending. I scrolled through the transaction history like I was watching a slow-motion car crash. Flights, rental cars, Apple Store charges, DoorDash. Almost every other day there was a $1,200 charge to a cabin rental service. A week after my birthday, while I was alone eating leftover pad thai on my couch, they were sitting by a fireplace in the mountains on my credit. I called the bank and locked every remaining shared account. Then I called a lawyer. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat still for a while, trying to figure out how far this had really gone. My credit score was already dropping. My insurance rates could be affected. A default that size could screw me for years. The lawyer was calm, efficient, told me I wasn't alone. That financial abuse from family members happens more than people think. It didn't make me feel better, but at least it gave me a direction. I started the process of separating myself legally. Filed paperwork to dispute the charges, sent copies of emails and texts, screenshotted every request they'd made in the past year, all of it. The lawyer also advised me to block them, at least temporarily, while the case was being built. I did. I thought they'd spiral, maybe try to show up again, but they went quiet for days, then a week, until my brother showed up at my work. I just finished lunch and was heading back into the building when I saw him standing near the entrance, hoodie, dark circles under his eyes, looking like he hadn't slept. Somehow he'd found where I worked, probably through LinkedIn. Or maybe he asked our parents. He called my name, but I didn't stop walking. He followed. Said he just wanted to talk. Said Mom and Dad were freaking out. Said they got some kind of letter from a collections agency. That the ski trip got canceled. That they were considering selling the car. All of it poured out like a flood. Then he said something that made me stop in my tracks. He said, "You should have just paid it off like always. It didn't have to get this ugly." That line knocked the air out of me. He didn't say, "We're sorry." He didn't say, "We didn't realize what we were doing." He said, "I should have fixed it, like it was my job, like it always had been." I turned to him and said, "You guys really don't get it. This wasn't about money." He shrugged, told me I was overreacting. Said I was trying to tear the family apart over what he called some dumb bills. That's when I walked away. I blocked him the second I got to my desk. Then I blocked my parents too. Phone, email, social, gone. That weekend, for the first time in years, I didn't hear a single word from them. No texts, no calls, no guilt trips, nothing. I started to feel normal again. I went for a walk in the park near my apartment, bought groceries without a calculator in my hand, and took a long shower without thinking about who was going to call me next. Then 2 weeks later, my lawyer emailed me. It wasn't legal documents this time. It was a scanned image of a letter handwritten, mailed to her office. No return address. It was from my dad. That alone would have been enough to catch me off guard. But it wasn't just a note. It was pages. 4 full pages written in uneven handwriting. The ink was faded in spots. Like he'd started crying halfway through and didn't bother fixing it. He said he was sorry that he'd never realized how much I'd taken on. That they'd leaned on me for so long they forgot what standing looked like. He said the debt wasn't my fault, that they were going to figure it out even if it meant selling the house. And then he wrote something that I didn't expect, something that hit harder than any apology ever could. He wrote, "We stopped treating you like a daughter and started treating you like a solution. I don't think we even saw the difference anymore." That broke me. I sat at my desk with a printed letter in my hands and cried for 20 straight minutes because he was right. That's exactly what had happened. But it still didn't erase what they'd done or what I had to do next. I kept my dad's letter tucked inside my nightstand for 3 full days, folded unread after that first moment. Not because I wasn't thinking about it, but because I couldn't figure out what I felt. I'd waited years for any of them to say sorry. To admit they saw what they were doing. And now, when they had nothing left to lean on, when their mess was spilling over, they finally did. But not with a call, not even with a visit, just a letter sent through my lawyer. Like a confession sealed in an envelope. The words stayed with me, especially one sentence. "We stopped treating you like a daughter and started treating you like a solution." That was it. That was the truth I'd never been able to say out loud. And it changed something. Not instantly. I didn't rush to call them or write back or decide everything was fixed. I'd done that before. This time I just stayed quiet and waited. I wanted to see if they meant it or if the letter was just one more play to win me back into the role they'd built around me. 2 weeks later, my aunt called. We're not close, but she's always had a front row seat to the dysfunction. She said my brother was back, living at home, sleeping on the couch, working part-time at some home improvement store. No car, no laptop, just quiet. That alone shocked me. Then she said something else. Apparently he'd been walking to work in the mornings. That's when I started to believe it. Just a little. A few days after that, I checked my credit account and saw something strange. A payment. Not a big one, just $92. But it wasn't for me. Then another came a week later. And another. It wasn't automatic or consistent, but it was real. They were paying off the debt. The one they swore wasn't their fault. The one I almost let ruin my finances. They were paying it down slowly on their own. I didn't say anything, just watched. Then out of nowhere, my mom sent a letter too. It was smaller, shorter, sloppier, like she'd written it late at night and didn't read it twice. She said she'd gotten a part-time job at a dental office answering phones. She said they'd started budgeting for the first time ever. She said the ski trip money went to groceries and they sold some furniture to catch up on the utilities. But the last paragraph stuck with me. I didn't realize how much we relied on you until you stopped. Not just for money, for everything. You've always been the one who kept things from falling apart. I think we just forgot you needed support too. For a long time I didn't know what I wanted from them. I used to fantasize about an apology, then a breakdown, then some dramatic reunion. But standing in the quiet of my own apartment, debt finally dropping, phone not ringing at all hours, I realized what I wanted was what I finally had. Peace. I didn't rush to forgive them. I didn't unblock them all at once or show up for dinner. But I did something. I sent one message just to my dad since he'd started it. I said, "I'm glad you're starting to figure things out. It's not about money. It never was. I just needed to not be your lifeline anymore." No emoji, no over-explaining. He didn't reply right away. When he did hours later, it was just this. "We get that now. We're learning. Thank you for letting us fall. You probably saved us." That was the first time he'd ever thanked me for anything real. I still haven't visited them. I still keep my boundaries. I don't send money. I don't offer to fix anything. But they've stopped asking. They've stopped calling with emergencies. My brother finally stopped pretending like he had it worse. No. Now they say thank you. Not for the things I gave them but for the lessons I taught them by leaving.